Welcome to Canada's Entrepreneur, where we talk to the entrepreneurs who are making it happen across Canada and deliver the news, trends, knowledge, and opinions from entrepreneurs and business influencers across the country. Hi, everyone. I'm Phil Bliss, founder and CEO of Canada's Entrepreneur. Today, we're going to meet Bianca Best, who's an award-winning thought leader, global media executive, mother of four, inspiring speaker, highly credentialed coach, and champion of graceful productivity. With her personal journey and decades of leadership, both entrepreneurial and within the corporate structure, Bianca has developed proven big impact strategies that empower individuals and organizations to thrive. She's on a mission to eradicate the global burnout epidemic, impassioned by the belief that work should be a joy and not a struggle. Her new book, Big Impact Without Burnout, shares 8 transformative strategies to ensure ambitious women flourish without compromise. And Bianca is going to do that and move back into the entrepreneurial life. So say goodbye to modern life's freneticism and embrace a glorious life of impact and fulfillment, where at last success and peace coexist. The book is now available at all major retailers, or go to her website, biancabest.com/big impact without burnout, or you can go to YouTube and find out more. So Bianca, welcome to Canada's Entrepreneur. It's super to see you again, and I think people will find your story. Yes, you're not Canadian, but you are very international in scope and have a great story. So I think it's very, very good to have you here and let people understand it.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm absolutely delighted to be here with you. Thank you.
Okay. And before we get too deep into our conversation, I want you to tell everyone a little bit about who Bianca is, what you do, and how you got here today.
Wow, that's a long story.
Well, keep it down to 3 minutes, okay?
I am an author. I'm a global executive. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a coach, and I'm a very proud mother to 4 gorgeous kids that are all taller than me now. And I am very impassioned by burnout prevention and run a business called The Burnout Business. And that's my raison d'etre right now.
Well, that was short. That was good. That was good. But tell everyone a little bit about the burnout business. And yes, your new book as well. That would be kind of cool. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. So the burnout business is really where I'm sharing what I have learned throughout my own journey as an entrepreneur and as a corporate executive, how to ensure that we achieve our juiciest, shiniest goals without falling over. I learned the hard way and slammed into burnout repeatedly. And about 10 years ago, I'd got to the point where I no longer burnt out. I was soaring in all spheres of my life, and people started asking me, well, how do you do what you do? How can you have 4 children? How can you work full time and run a business on the side and run every day and still be smiling? Where does the energy come from? And so my entrepreneurial mind went, well, could I commoditize that? So I started bottling up exactly what I do to make sure I thrive in life and flourish. And I started creating programs, writing books, and teaching organizations and individuals how to really enjoy their meatiest ambitions, but without compromise. So this turned into running retreats with organizations like Google and Snapchat, through to working one-on-one in a coaching capacity with ambitious individuals. And now my business is focused on really just conveying these messages and strategies through pure business consultancy, through one-to-one coaching and group coaching, through my speaking business. I do a lot of motivational speaking on stages around the world where I share the strategies, and of course, book sales. So they're the 4 echelons of the burnout business.
Okay. So with all this experience, what are the top 3 things you've learned in your entrepreneurial journey to date?
Oh, top 3 things. Well, I would say the first thing, most important thing, is around not diluting core focus. I think it's very easy as an entrepreneur to get distracted by the next shiniest thing on the horizon. And actually, this dilutes some of our core power and impact. And I set up my first business in 2004, which I later sold in 2013. And when I look back on that business, and I think, well, why am I not sitting on a yacht right now, sipping champagne in a wide-brimmed hat? And the reason is, I think, because I was so constantly distracted that I diluted the core proposition of that first business. So that's definitely the top of the list of 3. Second one would be around personal energy management to ensure that you can deliver on the commitments that you have. And as a business owner, we know how varied the different directions we can be pulled in are. So really managing ourselves in such a way that we focus is incredibly important. And then thirdly, I would say it's around the people that you both bring into your team working for you and the suppliers that you partner with, and making sure that you really trust your gut in that realm, because everyone's going to be trying to sell you their way of doing something, their recommendations, their skill set, and actually trust your intuition when it comes to people. That's one of my top tips.
So why don't you've met a ton of entrepreneurs like me, and you've also worked in the corporate world, which is kind of interesting.
Mm.
So do you think entrepreneurs are different, are wired different? Is there something different about entrepreneurs versus those that you've worked side by side in corporate life with?
It's so funny that you just asked me that question, because somebody said to me in my corporate organization, which I'm now leaving to go entrepreneurial again. And I had a meeting on Friday with someone from my corporate world who I've worked with for 3 years. And she said to me, "You're such an entrepreneur, through and through, you're such an entrepreneur." And I thought, oh, that's such an interesting thing to say, because I've been in corporate for 15 years. What do you mean by that? And so it's actually on my agenda this week that my blog, because I write a weekly blog, my blog this week is going to be looking at the difference between corporates and entrepreneurs, because I'm very interested in that. Now, as I have entered the corporate realm, I have always put a hat on where I've said, I am an intrapreneur. So I tried to bring the entrepreneurial way of doing things into an organization that might have more rigidity and models of delivering work that I wanted to come in and disrupt. And organizations are looking for that flavor. They're looking for entrepreneurialism. But if we, at its core, what does it represent? It represents this perpetual chasing the opportunity and doing things differently, and energy and focus and attention that is always in pursuit of growth. And I see that as a core attribute that distinguishes me from perhaps the corporate colleagues I've worked with who have had linear careers and stayed in the same organization or the same realm. They're very used to things being set in stone, things being done a particular way, and they are potentially threatened by the volatility of constant change and disruption. Whereas I think entrepreneurs thrive on that landscape of calculated risk, but constant risk and change. And that's invigorating. Whereas a lot of the sort of corporate, the people that succeed in corporate are the ones that are comfortable with familiarity. But I don't want to in any which way demean the incredible leaders that work in corporate realms. And my most recent corporate stint in Publicis Group has certainly been the most intrapreneurial organization I've ever worked. And that's 120,000 people in a corporate realm. But there's a lot of pace of change and an invitation for people like me to come into that organization and help disrupt continuously.
So, I think it's a good question for you because, you've been in the corporate side and you're seeing lots of businesses, but, today's businesses are seeing a lot of change, much more than normal, uh, or the past, if you like. Uh, what do you think, now that you're moving into a different journey, what do you, from what you've seen, what do you think you're going to take with you or try to fix? Apart from the obvious burnout thing, you're lucky. You've seen a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I have really enjoyed the past 12 years that I've spent in corporate. If I think about what I was missing when I ran my last business, and I will be missing again now, is that structure, but also the different access to different brilliant brains to buzz off. In the corporate environment, especially in large organizations, which I've been privileged to be in the past few years, there's always been someone who's got expertise in a certain area that can advise and mentor. When you're an entrepreneur, you're really at the behest of the supplier you picked up the phone to, the partner that you've started a collaboration with, and it's their advice that you hang on to, whereas you can get access to a far broader spectrum of expertise and guidance in corporate. There's also unlimited budgets, it seems, in corporate, where it's a lot easier to get sign off. And as an entrepreneur, of course, every single penny or dollar counts. And so investment is scrutinized, I would say, so much more rigorously when we're entrepreneurs, because it's our own livelihoods that are at stake. So it's that's going to be different, more power, less red
Mm-hmm.
tape. That's
Mm-hmm.
going to feel comfortable. One of the things I'm nervous about missing, especially as I go out on my own to build an entirely new brand and business, is losing that gravitas of being associated with a large brand like Publicis Group, for instance. So
Mm-hmm.
I would have the weight of people want to book me as a speaker. People want me to come in and consult with them when I'm Chief Growth Officer of Publicis Group. Now I'm CEO and founder of the Burnout business, which is something I'm just starting and trying to get up and off the ground. So I am nervous about, will I be invited to the big events and get the keynotes? And that makes me nervous, but then I'm also excited by that. It's a big challenge.
What are you most excited about in business today? Obviously, you've got your new book coming, but what part you can bring that up as well. But what are you most excited about?
Well, we're in this incredible landscape of potentiality. There's opportunity everywhere. We know how technology has changed how we work, how we live. And it just means there's an abundance of change. And that brings with it this level playing field of potentiality. So anyone can create a brand and have access to all of the big tech platforms and share what's great about that brand. So this is an unprecedented time in history. And so for business, it's exciting, but it's very competitive. And I get nervous as I look at the generation coming up beneath me, my children, where they're in this social media world of the get rich quick nonsense. And I worry that that impacts their own motivations, and that there's an assumption that it's going to be easy to make money and suddenly be an overnight success, and all these nonsense myths that are perpetuated throughout social media. That worries me, but a lot excites me, because if you've really got a good business and you've got a good savvy marketing head and you know how to communicate and use these platforms, you've got exactly the same opportunities as anyone else.
Interesting. So, with all those changes, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
Well, what I'm hoping is that I can build a business that has global impact. I mean, I will talk about my book, the Big Impact Without Burnout. Here it
Yeah,
is.
yeah. It's okay.
It is around how we can stop struggling. What I'm seeing is people are afraid in business of chasing their dreams, of going for promotion because there's this fear that I can't take on anymore. I am overwhelmed already. And you know, Phil, of course, being an entrepreneur, how endless that task list is and how much there is to do and how many different directions we can move in continuously. So I'm actually seeing a fear. A lot of the people that I work with in my one-on-one coaching sessions, they're afraid to actually keep chasing the stars because they feel that they can't cope with too much. And so the reason I've written this book is to bring hope and inspiration and optimism back into the workplace, because I believe every one of us has the potential to flourish and absolutely have magnificent impact. And we don't have to compromise ourselves. We just have to really know ourselves and manage ourselves in such a way that we achieve our dreams without compromise. And it doesn't have to be the lofty dreams of I'm going to save the world. You know, it can be as straightforward as hitting the KPI this month. But when we are strategic and very focused on what I teach around energy management over and above time management, when we focus on that as our core mainstay, then we are much more likely to achieve our goals. So when I look to the future in the next 5 years, I hope that I'm really sprinkling the magic of energy management into businesses so there is more self-agency within individuals and collectively to ensure that we continue to grow and have impact and that dreams don't go unfulfilled.
So even with all those guidances in place, what do you see as the biggest challenge in your future as an entrepreneur?
I would say me keeping myself personally on track and not diluting myself. So my biggest challenge is always the fact that I'm energized by lots of other ideas. So if I talk about my core principle in my book, it's around energy management. So I will say, chase what energizes you. But for me, so much energizes me that I have to be really careful at reining myself in. And I learned in my first business where I kept chasing new product lines, new expansion. And I went from being a trade business into an omni-channel global organization across a decade. But I diluted what the core essence of the business was. So the biggest challenge for me is going to be staying true to what the core proposition is, which is around this burnout prevention at scale, and making sure that I can deliver that in such a way where I'm still energized and having the positive impact I hope I will have.
You know, if you could go back in time, what advice would you give yourself, say, a decade ago?
Follow your energy.
Follow
Follow
your
your
energy.
energy. Follow your energy. I always talk about my CV as a chronology of passions explored. And I've always leaned into anything I'm passionate about or excited by. I've leaned into it. And I think that's served me really well. But where I've slightly fallen over is that energy management piece, because I did burn out an awful lot and it didn't need to be as hard as it was. And so that's my advice to my younger self and to anyone else listening and learning and feeling very ambitious.
I mean, in a coaching role, you're kind of in a mentorship role, but what's the best piece of advice that you've received that you use on a regular basis?
The best advice that I've received. Now, I'm going to talk about this in a corporate realm because I didn't really have any mentorship in my entrepreneurial endeavors. But in the corporate realm, I entered corporate not really very naive. I'd run my own business, but I hadn't played the corporate game. And I didn't really know how to be effective in that kind of environment other than just being myself, which is probably good. But somebody said to me, do the job you aspire to hold. And then the promotion comes, the money comes. And I took that to heart. And I thought that was brilliant advice because I did. I just started leading pieces of business, showing up like I ran the business. I was always in my finest clothes and heels, dressed to the nines. And so I got promoted again and again and again and again, which is why I ended up staying in corporate for 12 years or so. But I love this question. I want to think, what advice have I had that's impacted my own life? I'm going to need to think about that one.
Okay. I mean, I'm going to ask you this one because I ask everybody, and I kind of suspect the answer's obvious. But if you weren't doing what you do for work today, what would you be doing instead? And you're on that kind of cusp of moving from corporate to full bore entrepreneurship. But I'm still going to ask you it anyway.
Yeah, well, I would definitely be doing this. But if I had a totally different life, I think I would work with children in some capacity, some way. And actually, I wonder if eventually I can bring this burnout prevention work into schools, like even young children, little ones. I just want them to learn that life doesn't have to be this hard. So I'd love to work with children. I've got 4, but actually I would love to carry on having more. I feel very blessed, and obviously I can't have any more, but I always think I'll foster one day. I love children.
What book are you currently reading? Podcasts are you listening to, and that you would recommend to the audience that you get a lot of value from, or have had a lot of value from?
I have just started studying the energy codes by Dr. Sue Morter. And this is revolutionary work for how we work, but also how we feel. And I've fallen in love with the book, so much so that I'm now doing the coaching certification, practicing it with my clients. But I'm devouring her content on YouTube, wherever she is. This Dr. Sue Morter, I find transformational. So the energy codes, I
gotta take a look, listen to that.
Definitely recommend it.
Are you a morning or a night person?
Morning.
Morning?
Yeah.
Is that because of kids or because of you?
Choice. Yeah. I love the mornings. I love the sunrise. I like the silence. I like the space.
Yeah. What's keeping you up at night?
At the moment, it's the fear of going from the comfort of a salary that's income. And this is my very last month where I have a salary coming in. And so I have to work hard and make sure that I can keep this beautiful house. I'm a solo parent, and I worked very hard in my divorce to make sure that I could buy my ex out to keep my 4 children in this house and our dog. And I really don't want to lose the house, which is why I'm working night and day to just spread the big impact without burnout magic out into the world, and hope that I can properly commoditize it, make money from it, and stay in the house. But that's definitely what's keeping me up at night.
Bianca, you've got such a great story, and I'm so pleased that you could come on. And I think as we were talking about before we started, you'll be back, and we'll be getting everyone to listen to you in a more learning and constructive role. Not that your story isn't really a good story, especially taking the leap from corporate entrepreneurship to your own entrepreneur. But in the meantime, how can people get a hold of you if they listen to this? And how can they get a hold of you?
Thank you. So my website is biancabest.com, and you can follow me on Instagram, biancabest _ and I'm on all the usual channels everywhere. YouTube, I have BBTV, where I share tips and insights around burnout prevention regularly. And I'd love you to subscribe to my weekly newsletter through my website. That would be great.
Okay. Thanks for coming on. Been a lot of fun, and I'm sure everyone will be learning a lot more about how to manage energy and burnout. Okay.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Geez, Bianca is so energizing. She showed us that with focus and managed energy, you can build a highly successful business. I'm Phil Bliss. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter on our website, and subscribe on our YouTube channel as well, or at any one of the major podcast channels. Thanks for listening to Canada's Entrepreneur, where you meet the entrepreneurs that drive today's economy in Canada. See you soon.